Melissa Latif, Chairman of Singapore Dance Alliance. We have my colleagues here, Kai Mui, Hai Ying, Eugene, together with me. Today, we are honored to have our speakers with us today, Mr. Yannick Shagan, Artistic Director of Singapore Ballet, Ms. Melissa Quek, Head of the School of Dance and Theatre at LaSalle College of Arts, as well as Mr. Brent Caroline, Ballet Master, Rehearsal Director and Choreographic Assistant at Ballet on Run, Düsseldorf. Good morning to you all. Today, our topic of discussion is the world of dance and dance education post-pandemic. On the 11th March 2020, the COVID-19 virus was declared an unprecedented pandemic by the World Health Organization. For the last 2 years, countries all over the world have or had at some point gone through intermittent and sometimes lengthy lockdowns. This has greatly changed the world we live in. We would like to hear from the speakers today how the pandemic has changed the art form and dance in general. Mr. Yannick, could you share a little bit with us? Maybe I understand at some point that Singapore Ballet had to do some performances online. How has this changed the way we see dance? Maybe if you could share a little bit.
Well, we did a schedule that was 4 times weekly during all the circuit breaker, where we had Meet Me on Monday, which was an interview with a personality. We had Technique Tuesday, which was a class that was given online. Fitness Friday, and I think we did Stretch It Sunday or something like that. And in addition to that, we did our annual gala online in 2020. We also did a Singapore International Arts Festival performance online in 21. So we were constantly putting out content online. We noticed there was fatigue, where people, their attention span dropped radically because there was so much available, and you could, to do anything significant, you had to do it in bite sizes. So that was an interesting development, because they kept saying shorter, 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 shorter. Rather than trying to give something quality, they just wanted fast little sort of fast food kind of things, which doesn't necessarily lead to the best content, but you adapt and you adapt.
Yes. How about Brent? Did your company also have online performances and things like that?
We did 2 different online presentations. We created a short film based on Denise Volpe's A Simple Piece. So we had a single shot camera go throughout the entire performance, going in between the dancers, creating a new experience for the audience to have an opportunity to see dancers up close and even from behind and the side throughout a continuous shot of the entire piece. And because the piece was choreographed during the COVID times, in Germany, our regulations mandated that even in the studio or in a performance, all dancers must have social distance. So the cameraman, who was wearing a mask and was fully decked out in PPE, he had space to go in between all the dancers, because there was a lot of port-a-bras, a lot of movement, but not a lot of traveling and locomotion throughout the stage. So the spacing, there wasn't as much movie magic needed to edit and show people running away and people coming back in for the cameraman to sneak around there. Because of the social distancing, it gave pathways for the camera person to really get in and intimate with the performers. And then we also had a performance of Azure Barton's Come In, which was a bit more of a Hollywood style production with 6 different cameras and close-ups and cinematography cameras and a director of photography. And that was a much bigger feat in terms of production for a 22-minute piece.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of work, and I think a lot of the the online versus physical after that, which we'll talk about a bit later. But how about Melissa? How does it affect the dance education side of things on your end?
I think in some ways it's actually expedited a lot of what we were expecting to have happen in the dance industry in terms of technology. So there was a greater interest in dance for camera, those digital technologies, like a lot more people jumped on it, was trying to learn it quickly. All of the companies are trying to digitize fast. And so that sort of in terms of education, you suddenly realize, okay, we need to know how to talk to a cameraman. We need to improve our camera awareness. Students actually need to start figuring out how to edit their works fast, because a lot of submissions then go online instead. So in that sense, it's sort of sped up that relationship. In terms of what happens in the studio, I think we kind of are still trying to hold on to what we had in the past. Like we still want to be very much in the studio with other bodies in that space, and you need that connection. So I think people are still hoping to hold on to that, and in education, I think we need that. Or you need those relationships, and sometimes it's not enough to just establish those relationships online. So that didn't change as much. We're really fortunate to be able to still go into the studio with our students.
Yes, I think that's a whole lot of topic after. I mean, dance is just so physical that it's just, I mean, we have new normal about dancing online. That's another topic altogether. But in terms of the psychological effects, how has it affected the dancers, dancers and students? Yannick, do you have anything to share? I mean, you have a big company there as well.
Well, I think if we go through the students first, I think some students made the decision whether they wanted to continue on or not. And I think that some students made a choice that if they couldn't dance physically with other people, that they probably should let it go. And for other people, in the best instance, there were lots of dancers who took online classes that you might never have the opportunity to take a class with someone from New York City Ballet or Dutch National Ballet or the Royal Ballet or different places that were offering online classes. And it gave people opportunities to sort of look a little bit more globally than just at home. And competitions were held online. There were all sorts of opportunities that hadn't presented themselves before, and some of them were beneficial and some of them possibly not, because you cannot learn how to do a grand allegro in your bedroom. You cannot, a teacher can't instruct a person individually or show much attention when it's through a screen. You can give suggestions, but that screen tends to limit what can be communicated. And I guess that's the big word. Even though the screen is supposed to enhance communication, it actually limits it because there's no personal connection. So you don't, if you've got 20 people on a screen, you're not going to be able to give any individual attention to any of those particular people. Whereas if you're physically in a room, you can. So I think it presented pluses and minuses. Again, it was just one of those things that if you look at the plus side, good. If you look at the minus side, bad. If you look at it all together, it probably evened out in the middle.
So do you think moving forward then, we would still be continuing all these online, sort of training and also performance and all that?
I don't believe in training online at all. I don't think it's beneficial. It's one of those things that it's a group environment where you see other dancers and you learn not from just what you are doing in combinations and exercises, but you learn by observing other dancers' good habits, their struggles, by communicating with them, by establishing relationships, by sharing things, by personalities, by attempt and fail, all the things that are needed to be in a place with somebody with somebody else, with lots of somebody else's. A lot of dancers learn from good examples from other dancers, and you don't get that when you're online. You're training in an environment that is a little bit introspective in, you're going to be the best that you can be for yourself, but what if somebody else has something to offer by observation that you don't get the opportunity to benefit from? And sometimes it's necessary to see people who are much more skilled than you are, so that you can aspire to that.
I do agree. Melissa, I know that in Singapore then, during our lockdowns, or rather the circuit breaker, we Singaporeans had the online trade, like online classes at a certain point in time. Was there anything that was out of normal that you guys realized in regards to online? Maybe the psychological effects on students?
Actually, okay, we were actually very, very fortunate. We didn't get affected by the circuit breaker because we were already on term break at that time. But what we did realize is that with everybody in isolation, we actually had to work harder to reach out to students and just check in on them before coming back to school, because they hadn't had enough contact. So they were a bit sort of without a community. So we were trying to touch base with them a lot sooner, sending them videos, things to watch, just trying to keep them engaged and talking with each other, or staying engaged in what they were doing dance-wise, or trying to sort of feed their minds a little bit more, or, meeting, getting them to meet online. I think some of them were like meeting online and just jamming, like little dance parties or something. So I think that helped a lot for them. Coming back into the studio, of course, was a big relief. But yeah, psychologically, I think it was the as Yannick was talking about, like being online, just stuck in front of a screen. They were losing a lot of, I think, that awareness of their own body, because their minds are so active and their bodies are not as active. And so that was the main thing, so getting them back. So mindfulness, I think, became a very big thing after that. Yeah.
Was that the same for your side in Germany, Brent?
We were very lucky because with our health protocols, we were able to work in a bubble format. So our company of 46 dancers were split into groups of 5 and 6, and you were not allowed to leave your bubble. You weren't allowed to be in the same change room as somebody else outside of your bubble. So for about 6 months, the company was fragmented into 5 and 6 person groups, and there was no interaction within the studio confines. So there was a lot of isolation, and coming from a place where usually a company and schools are based on dance community, the fragmentation of everything made it difficult some days for motivation, because again, like Yannick said, people look up to each other and use each other for inspiration. So when you only have the same 4 other dancers to kind of feed off their energy, if one person is not feeling it that day, it can kind of bring the whole group down. So as a teacher, it was really important to continue to give positivity and try to inspire them to keep going, even though we're doing the same rehearsal for month 3, because we needed to get that digital programming out. So yeah, it was a struggle for the dancers, and it was also a struggle for the ballet master team to keep on energizing everybody during this tough time.
So how did you guys do that? Yannick, did you have anything that, to keep the dancers motivated and, psychologically be not so stressful?
Since we couldn't do performances, I decided to do 2 major things. We did a choreographic workshop at one point, which turned out to be extraordinarily beneficial. using dancers within the company to choreograph on other dancers within the company. That ended up being very, 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 very beneficial. And also I took the time that actually I never would have had otherwise to make an archive. I took 11 of Chusango's ballets. Some of them had been performed by Singapore Ballet. Some of them had been done in our history, but not for the last 20 years. So I took 11 of them and I did an archival recording. So I taught them to the dancers, but 11 ballets is a lot of ballets to teach. And I taught them all of the ballets one by one. I split them into groups, into pairs, or sometimes 3. And then we would learn them, get them ready to be archival photographed or digitalized so that they were done in the studio with an archive camera and then a close-up camera. And then I did the history of each of the pieces and their stage patterns, their counts, their set designs, their costume designs, their lighting designs. So we did this archive that we never would have had time to do otherwise. So that turned out to be a very, very we're just about to finish it actually right now. So it took on a life of its own, and I was very glad that we had that opportunity, and the dancers were very engaged, and it sort of brought them back into something new and different and interesting, and kept them motivated.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Melissa, how about on your end? How do we, did you have to do anything big for students to get them motivated a little bit more after? Like coming back now, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think motivation was the problem, but really very similar, I think, to what Yannick did. It's being more process driven. It was nice to take a bit of a pause, not be as product driven, to try to give a longer working period towards something. And so we actually turned them to thinking even more about the research process behind a dance that they might be performing, or thinking about and really getting them to invest in their roles a little bit more. So not just physically, but what goes into the intention, their interpretations of what they're doing. So that was quite a good sort of chance to recalibrate, because I think as young dancers, it's not that they don't know about it, but they just want to move. And so sometimes being held back a little bit and being like, well, you know, we're not really allowed out right now. So why don't you just take this time to research a little bit more? I think that was a good sort of switch for them. Yeah.
Do you then think, I mean, this question probably addressed to all 3 of you, moving forward with this online, will it continue like with online performance? I mean, Yannick mentioned already that you don't support, you don't believe in online training long term, which I agree, because of it's dance and it's something physical. What do you think then, moving forward, the new normal will be like for dance, or will it go back to, again, the original traditional way?
I don't think it's going to go back to its traditional way, but there were things that I thought were, like, I got to see programs that National Ballet of Canada was presenting online that I wouldn't have gotten to see otherwise, that I was very, very grateful for. And I eagerly awaited things that, for example, that New York City was going to present that I wouldn't have gotten a chance to see. I would wish those things, truthfully, I would wish those things would stay. But choreographers are a little bit reticent, and I agree entirely, about letting their works out online for fear of copyright and plagiarism and lots of other details. But I was very glad to see things from places like National Ballet of Canada and New York City Ballet and Australian Ballet that offered really high quality things on video. I would wish those wouldn't disappear, but they already have, now that people are back and performing on stage. There are things, again, if we're talking about training, I have to reaffirm the fact that, you know, you cannot learn how to, you can learn sort of stick figure images of how to become a dancer, but you can't learn how to partner. You can't learn how to move beyond rudimentary contemporary work, truthfully, because you need other people alongside you to feed off of, to interact with, to do, you know, I mean, how can you do contact and improvisation and things that are necessary to have other people there with you to bounce physically and mentally off of. So to some degree, I think that we needed to get back to the studio, no matter how much fun it was to be. Well, I don't know if it was fun to be stuck at home.
Yes. So then, I mean, this goes back to the question. There has been, like you said, so many online materials and sometimes a lot of online masterclasses, even up until now, I think. I mean, the good thing about it is people get to, like you said, learn from New York, people from New York, new people from London, where they usually don't. But how do students then see which ones are the one worth going for and ones that are, legit good in your in what you think, in your opinions? Any one of you?
I think it's time Brent gave us an answer.
Can you repeat the question? There's a little bit of feedback. Can you repeat the question one more time, please?
Yeah, so it's there has been so many online materials like workshops and all that kind of thing. So how do students know that which one are beneficial for them?
I think for the video and masterclass online masterclasses, it really comes down to who you idolize, and a lot of source material has come up on Instagram masterclasses, and Misty Copeland did a masterclass. And I think to just dive in, because you can only take so much from a video and from an online seminar, you can be inspired by something. But I think just like you can't change a dancer in a week, you won't change as a dancer after watching one video. But you can see something and be like, okay, I support that, or I enjoyed that, or that part of the training was very interesting to me. But that part of the training, not so much. So I think it can be a strategy to develop how to discern what works for your own body, and what open up your horizons of what you enjoy as a dancer.
And not go masterclass after masterclasses, right?
Well, you could sit back and relax and enjoy and see what they're going to say. Like, everyone has one or two tidbits of information that could really hit home for you. I wouldn't spend my days only doing masterclasses. I think it's a nice supplementary thing that could be interesting to take a class with a teacher from Royal Ballet, or like World Ballet Day was such a monumentous logistical achievement, to have so many ballet companies around the world pre-COVID finding some way to bring their content to the world digitally. And I think, like Melissa said, it's COVID has pushed the innovation of what technology can do for ballet companies forward. And I think it would be interesting to continue moving forward with some of that digital technology, but not relying on it like we had to during the lockdowns and circuit breaker.
Yeah, I guess it was inevitable that people had to go online then, but moving forward, we will still, I mean, it's still going to be a traditional, right? Yeah. In terms of education, Melissa, do you have anything to add?
I think that, as Brent was saying, we don't want to rely on the digital, but definitely as something that's supplementary, it's been very, very helpful and beneficial. It's so nice to have those sort of online sharing, whether it's performances, online festivals, or even competitions. Then you get to see students in other countries, how they are, because sometimes we can't fly an entire class of students somewhere else, and we want to, but it's not really possible to do it that often. So how do you continue that exchange and learning from each other, or even the artists? You can't have them for as long as you would like to have them with you physically. So having those initial touch points online with your guest artists before they really fly down and work with the students has also helped a lot to deepen that relationship. Again, process, it's actually helping to get the process strengthened in terms of getting research done earlier before they dive into some of those other actually just learning the choreography itself or workshopping it. So I think there have been, it's been really helpful in that sense. But as Yannick said, I also miss access to some of these sort of international works that we really wanted students to be watching. And so many of them have gone offline and we can't access them anymore. Yeah.
I'm probably going to show my age right now, but I always like to look at the history of something, so that, you know, for example, if somebody watched a master class with a very famous dancer, how did that dancer come to the point that they are right now standing in front of you? What was their history? How did they get into the company they are? How did they progress through the company? How did they train? What inspired them when they were young? Who were their teachers, you know, and then compare that experience to your own. Same thing with choreographers. I mean, if somebody saw the works of John Neumeier for the first time, who is Neumeier? What is his career? I mean, what made Neumeier such a famous choreographer? I would hope that the moment in time that they're looking at present would inspire them to do a little bit of a, how did this person become this person? How did a principal dancer at the Australian Ballet progress to becoming a principal dancer at the Australian Ballet? How did Netherlands Dance Theatre establish themselves as a force of change within the dance world? You know, all of those things, but then again, I get my little geek on, you know, so.
But it's good. I think it's, I mean, this lockdowns and COVID period really let us learn a little bit more and research a little bit more into the processes and what lies behind them, instead of just going forward all the time with our busy schedules and our busy trainings. Just out of curiosity, during this time, or did any one of you have any online auditions happening then, or moving forward, will this be an option for companies and schools? Like online auditions, you know, last time we wouldn't have thought that online auditions it can be done. But I think after this 2020 COVID, I think this has been done, right?
For professional companies, I think what's happened is that there's become this format, which is established pre-COVID, of this format of sending audition videos, so that they're a certain format. There's even guidelines, the international audition guidelines, and you get it all in 10 minutes. And so I get about 1 to 3 to sometimes more, depending upon the period of time in the year, audition videos every single day. And they all follow essentially the same format, which is good. But I would never hire anybody off a video, because you can't see their work ethic, you can't see how they interact with other dancers, you can't see their stylistic possibilities. You can see, if you were hiring for a specific project, but not as a repertory dancer, not as somebody who needed to dance a neoclassical piece, a contemporary piece, a balletic piece, someone with potential for the future, there's no way to tell that online. You can see how far somebody's come training-wise with their dancing and their performance. But who they are, you can't ascertain through that. It gives you an idea, but you can't ascertain it.
So that means they have an audition videos, and then after that they will come in physically for the audition, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Did Melissa, did your school have any online auditions happening?
In that period, yeah, we did have online auditions. Similarly, we would want a video first, and then because we can't physically be in the same studio as the students, then going online on Zoom was the next best alternative. So you would maybe do some improv things and chat with them. So it was the closest we could get to something live. But again, you know, the moment things opened up, everyone wants to be right back in the studio and just working together.
It's so interesting. I mean, dance, after all, is dance, and it's very physical. Whatever it is, it's still there's a new normal that you combine hybrid everything, but it's back to traditional methods, I suppose.
I think with the
Brent, please.
I think the audition process in general has continued to grow and become a lengthier process because before an audition would be somebody come and take class. Now it's an audition video plus class. We also do audition video plus class plus a repertoire rehearsal. And then we have a video class, repertoire rehearsal, and maybe a 2-month like test period. And then some companies have the option of having a full apprentice program before they even give a dancer a full contract. So I think the time that is needed to meet and see how a dancer works within a company setting, within a school setting, if you're working for a full-time school, like the Canada's National Ballet School uses an entire month to kind of vet how their students are going to work within the system before they're offered a full-time position. And with National Ballet of Canada, their apprentice program sometimes goes up to 2 to 3 years, depending on the dancer, before they're offered a full-time contract. So to have a relationship with that dancer before they're a full member of the company or a full member of the school, it's been a growing process, I think.
Thank you. Yannick, you had something to say?
No, I recently, someone made an observation that they'd seen something as a snippet, and so therefore they didn't need to see it in person. And I said, that's a little bit like going into somebody's kitchen at dinner, tasting what's in the pot and saying, I'm not going to stay for dinner. It's very nice. Thank you. The experience of sitting in a theater with other people around you, all experiencing the same performance together, or same thing with class, being in class and all experiencing the same impact of a teacher together. You can't get that individually. It's something that is a community. The experience that creates memories, the experience that creates change, is usually a physical experience, and something that's very complete and is feeding off the reactions of other people around you. And that can't be achieved, no matter how good something is, with looking into a camera. You can get a feel for something, but that boost of energy comes from human interaction.
Thank you. I really like it that, Yannick, you mentioned about how it's over the camera is still going to be different from being physically there. I think that's very true. Then back to how COVID has affected people around the world. So far, in any of your schools and companies, have you seen any changes in the dancers or students, as per se, have they been, are they a little bit more afraid of going on partner work or anything, any kinds of changes, psychologically or emotionally? Or even during the lockdowns that they had all these intermittent lockdowns, and then they had to do the classes online. I mean, they had to do trainings online and all that. Did it affect when it come back to the studio, like in terms of stamina and things like that for the dancers and students?
Maybe I'll go first. I think, we were all nodding at stamina. I think that one was a big one. It was very difficult. No matter how much people tried to train at home by themselves, we couldn't. You don't have enough space. You're not traveling. You can't cover it. So that was a big one, I think, for most of the dancers, just trying to get the stamina back in that period. Not just my students. It's also, I've been watching a lot of younger students lately. And so some things we have noticed, I think they are it took them a little bit longer to get back onto stage in terms of being fully comfortable. So that level of stage fright just went up a little bit more. They're a little bit more nervous on stage. The big group work. So I was watching our younger kids lately, and I think you can see that there's a little bit, the spatial awareness has gone down quite a bit, actually, because they haven't been dancing in big groups, or they've had to dance on the spot. So they haven't, they weren't working with their spatial design and awareness of each other. And then, of course, for my students, yes, we had to quickly try to work on partnering and contact improvisation, just contact in general, because there was a period where there's a group of students who have not really been allowed to have that contact at that time due to the safe management measures. And so that was the big one that we were really worried about. We were so scared that we would have to graduate, like we don't want to graduate a batch of students who never did any contact work. And so that was quite a concern for us. So fortunately, it didn't come to that. It ended soon enough. But yeah, that was one of the big ones in terms of getting them ready to go out there.
Brent, did you have any experience with that? How were yours?
We had an issue with mental stamina, because going from doing either just class or doing an online class or working on a single piece for just an hour a day, because we didn't have normal performance schedule and other performances to prepare. There was a big jump when things started to open up again, and we went from that reduced schedule to a 6-hour workday. And you could see the dancers mentally fatigued, like even before lunch, because our lunch time was at 2:30, I think. And like, there's always a midday slump. Sometimes you want your cup of coffee, but to make it to the end of the day and try to make it a productive schedule was quite difficult, because everyone's focus was waning at a much earlier point in the day than we had experienced in the past. So to build up their mental stamina was something that we had to work as a team to facilitate.
What did you have to do, like in terms of helping with that and manage?
It was a mixture of how to design classes. We would try to organize classes among the team so that the Monday, Tuesday class was a little bit more simplified. And then we reduced the amount of complicated exercises that we would give at the beginning. And then as we moved through the week, we would try to ramp that up a bit more. And then also working on scheduling logistics of who's working in at what part of the day. So instead of having a core group rehearsal at 6:30 p.m., we would try to reduce that and put the soloists at the end of the day, so that it's more individual and you're trying to keep a connection with the dancer one-on-one, rather than trying to herd 20 dancers at such a late time in the day.
See. Yannick, with your dancers?
Well, the thing that sort of unmentioned is that there's a degree, because of all of the different personalities. Some people underreact, and think that everything will be just fine and don't give much attention. Some people overreact. There's a different state of awareness for all. I mean, we have 38 dancers in the company. There was a different state of awareness for all 38 dancers. And trying to keep everybody basically considering things the same way. When we started to do partnering, there was a little bit of reticence. When we did, there was a lot of nerves. There was a lot of nerves, because here in Singapore we had the safe distancing ambassadors that would come into the room and things like that, and so there were nerves. And then gradually, as everybody got vaccinated and saw people, because one by one people have gotten sick and then recovered quite well afterwards because of being inoculated and vaccinated. I think that the stress level went down significantly, to know that we would be all right in the end. But that was hard to prove at the beginning, because nobody had any experience with something like this.
Thank you. Just to round it out, can I have also each one of you just maybe give some words of encouragement during this period of time? I mean, we are all going back to normal now, but just have some encouragement words. Maybe we can start with Melissa first, to the dancers, to the teachers, to the schools, wherever.
Wow. I think I feel that the biggest thing is to know that your passion never died, or your love of dance has never died, no matter what we've gone through. And I believe that having gone through something difficult together just made us stronger as a community. And I hope that we will continue to pull together as a community and even stronger internationally than before. So yeah.
Brent, can we have a few words from you?
I thought during the last 2 years, the amount of resilience that the dance community has shown has been incredible. How the way that companies and schools have been able to pivot so quickly to embrace the new normal, so that everybody can keep on training to the best of their abilities has been incredible. And I hope, I know that all institutions are always continually looking to innovate. And I think there will be some good as far as how we can learn from this experience to move forward and find even more ways to innovate within our community.
Thank you. Yannick, some words from you, please.
What I always think in something like this is that I encourage people to go see everything, go do everything. Don't hold back. Now that we can engage with other people, energy, you know, don't hold back and say, oh, well, you know, I think I'll do that in the future. Because what happened when we thought everything would continue the way it had, it can prove that things cannot always be counted on to continue the way they are. So when it's in front of you and you have an opportunity, seize it and experience everything, you know, do classes, go to performances, talk to your friends, you know, engage socially, engage mentally, engage in a way that is really be there completely.
Thank you. Just go full out to whatever we have, right? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming in, and thank you for all your sharing as well with us. Otherwise, thank you very much once again for coming in. We have come to the end of the conference. Appreciate all your words, anything, and anyone listening, you can, if you have any words for our speakers, you can always email us. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Melissa, Brent, and Yannick, for your time today.